They lurk unseen, with hunger keen. Could your flesh be the perfect breeding ground for something beyond imagination? Good evening, and welcome to Swamp of the Lost. Tonight's tale from Japan challenges the very core of personal autonomy. In a bustling Tokyo apartment, a young man discovers an unsettling truth. His body is no longer his own. As an invisible invader takes hold, we witness the terrifying erosion of self. How far would you go to reclaim control of your own mind and body? The Parasites paradox, a modern infection. It was about 4 years ago, in late February, when the chill of winter still lingered in the air. That night, around 8 o'clock, my friend Masaki unexpectedly showed up at my student apartment. As soon as I opened the door, Masaki started speaking rapidly. "Hey, I have something on my mind, a problem I need to talk to you about. It's a bit hard to explain over the phone. I think it's quite serious." Taken aback, I asked him, "What's going on?" Masaki hesitated for a moment before lowering his voice and replying, I think I might have some kind of weird parasite." I couldn't help but chuckle, much to my own embarrassment. As a college student at the time, the word parasite already sounded bizarre and almost comical to me, and to think that my friend believed he had one. Masaki's grave expression only added to the absurdity of the situation. "What's that all about? Did you go to the student health center?" However, Masaki maintained his serious demeanor and replied, "No, I don't think going to the student health center would help." Masaki's story was fragmented and difficult to follow. I invited him inside to explain in more detail, but he refused, saying, "No, let's talk here. I don't want to come into your apartment." His behavior must have made me look at him suspiciously because Masaki quickly continued, as if to justify himself. "No, it's just a precaution. There's a chance it could be contagious to others." "Wait, it's contagious?" "No, that's not it. It's really just a precaution. To be honest, I'm not even sure if it's actually a parasite." I insisted that it was too cold to talk outside and that we should discuss it inside. Perhaps resigning himself to my suggestion, Masaki finally stepped into the entryway and closed the door behind him. He didn't seem to want to fully enter my apartment, so he sat down just inside the doorway and began to talk, carefully choosing his words. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure what it is, but for the sake of discussion, let's assume it's a parasite. The thing is, there's an incident that comes to mind. I think it was probably during that picnic under the plum blossoms we all went to. You remember the cup salads Rico made? Well, I was the only one who ate them. The picnic he was referring to had taken place just a few days before Masaki's visit over the weekend. We had heard about a nearby nature park with a plethora of plum trees in full bloom, and that it had a lovely atmosphere with the faint, sweet, and tangy scent of plum blossoms wafting through the air. So the four of us from our casual college group decided to go for a picnic under the plum blossoms. For lunch that day, we each brought a dish to share. Rico was the one who brought the cup salads. They were in clear plastic cups with lids, filled with an assortment of steamed vegetables, boiled beans, and a homemade dressing that she had prepared separately. There was one cup salad for each person, and just as we were about to distribute them, Rico suddenly let out a scream, "Oh my gosh!" She frowned and lifted each cup salad, intently examining the contents. I saw something that looked like a whitish grub-like creature. For us college students, such an incident was more entertaining than anything else, and we made quite a fuss, laughing and squealing. Rico kept saying, "It was huge, much thicker and longer than my finger," as she repeatedly lifted the cup salads to double-check. We also received our cup salads and swapped them with each other to investigate, but we couldn't find the oversized grub that Rico had described anywhere. "Rico, you must have been mistaken. If it was that big, we would have spotted it without having to check like this." However, Rico started saying, No, it's really gross," and began collecting the cup salads from everyone. At that moment, Masaki said, "Rico, you're seeing things. There's nothing there. It's all good." And he opened the lid of the cup salad he was holding, poured the dressing over it, and devoured it all. We also told her, You must have been seeing things. Let's dig in. But Rico insisted, absolutely not, I can't, and put the cup salads away in the basket. As a result, Masaki was the only one who ended up eating the cup salad that day. Masaki continued his story as he reminisced about the events. I've gone over my recent lifestyle countless times, but I haven't done anything else out of the ordinary. If it is a parasite, the only thing that comes to mind is that salad incident. Why do you think it's a parasite? Is your stomach bothering you or something? No, I'm not feeling ill anywhere, but something that resembles parasite eggs keeps coming out of my mouth. Whoa, are you for real? It's all right. They don't come out when I'm talking like this. Oh, right. Could you fetch me a glass of water? A clear glass would be preferable, if possible. At Masaki's request, I handed him a glass filled with water. I'm going to drink this water now, so I need you to verify that I'm not doing anything suspicious. Listen carefully. I'm going to drink the water normally. I won't spit anything from my mouth back into the glass. Please observe closely. As instructed, I watched intently as Masaki drank the water. He was drinking quite ordinarily. He didn't return any water from his mouth to the glass, and I didn't notice him doing anything questionable. After setting down the glass, Masaki said, tissues and also a paper plate or something would be ideal, as he glanced around the room. Fortunately, I had some leftover paper plates from the picnic stored in the kitchen drawer. I handed Masaki the tissues and paper plates, and he placed a paper plate on the floor and began layering tissues on it, one sheet at a time. After stacking about 10 sheets, he slowly poured the remaining 1 centimeter of water from the bottom of the glass onto the tissues. Take a look at this. Upon closer inspection, I noticed that something transparent was falling out along with the flowing water. Plop, plop, plop. On the damp tissues, there were 5 or 6 colorless, translucent, jelly-like objects, each about 1 centimeter in diameter. They were shaped remarkably like fig fruits. They resembled spheres that had been pinched and stretched at one point with a plump, elongated section. What the heck is this? Is it alive? No, it doesn't move or anything. Hey, you watched me drink the water, right? I didn't spit anything from my mouth into the glass, did I? No, you didn't. When I asked what this was, Masaki didn't answer directly, but instead said, do you have a needle or a thumbtack? Anything with a sharp point will do. I rummaged around and found a safety pin, which I handed to Masaki. Masaki pressed the tip of the safety pin against the jelly-like substance. It seemed tougher than it looked, as the pin didn't pierce through immediately, and the surface of the jelly dimpled as if resisting. As Masaki applied more force, it quivered as if it had popped, and the contents slowly spread out. As the jelly-like substance was pierced, countless minuscule granules emerged from within, collapsing into a formless pulp like mud. The image that came to my mind was, it looks like fish eggs. As we left it alone and watched, the countless granules seemed to dissolve and seep into the tissue, disappearing from sight. What do you think? Hey, what did it look like to you? It looked like eggs inside an egg sac. Right? I thought so too. Hey, take a look inside my mouth. Nervously, I peered into Masaki's mouth as he asked, but I couldn't find anything particularly noteworthy. Masaki showed me the underside of his tongue and pulled back his lips to show his gums, but there were no concerning signs anywhere. Okay, watch closely. Saying that, Masaki kept his mouth open and began to slowly lick the inside of his lower lip with the tip of his tongue. Immediately, 2 more jelly-like substances appeared in succession. Plop, plop. They were wedged in a distorted shape between his tongue and lip. Hey, they came out! See? Masaki said and spat the transparent granules onto the tissue from earlier. Where did those come from just now? I don't know. Whether it's from the lips, gums, or the tip of the tongue. I've tried many times, but I can't tell where they're coming from. When do they come out? They come out when I drink water, but there seems to be some condition. Like earlier, they usually come out when I drink water from a glass. But conversely, they don't seem to come out when I scoop water with my hand to drink. Also, they come out when I lick the inside of my lower lip, like just now. When did you first notice this? Masaki began to explain that he had noticed it this afternoon. At that time, He was playing an online game. He was drinking water from a convenience store, poured into a coffee cup he had at home. Engrossed in the game screen, he wasn't paying attention to how much water was left in the cup. When he brought the cup to his mouth, he realized it was nearly empty. As he was about to pour more water, he suddenly stopped. The surface of the small amount of water remaining at the bottom of the cup appeared to be bulging unevenly. He spread tissues on the desk and emptied the cup's water there, finding this disgusting thing. At first, he thought it had been mixed in with the bottled water. He spread a towel in the sink and emptied the rest of the bottled water there, but nothing came out. He felt sickened, thinking that he might have swallowed that thing. He cupped water directly from the faucet and rinsed his mouth several times. Then, almost unconsciously, he licked the inside of his lip to check, driven by a desire to confirm. There was a plop sensation. He screamed and spat the contents of his mouth into the sink. He rinsed his mouth thoroughly once more, checked again, screamed. After repeating this several times, he realized that this disgusting thing wasn't staying in his mouth, but was coming out from somewhere inside his mouth. Even so, at first he thought that this jelly-like substance might be some kind of body tissue. Although he didn't understand well, he thought that perhaps something like a whitehead had formed inside his mouth, or that his salivary gland function had glitched. Then, without much thought, he crushed the jelly on the tissue with his nail and was horrified. There were countless granules inside. At that moment, what came to mind was the large grub-like thing that Rico had claimed to have seen on the day of the picnic under the plum blossoms. He remembered that he had eaten the entire salad that supposedly contained it. Masaki's story seemed to add up, in my opinion. I could also tell from his complexion as he spoke that Masaki wasn't lying. According to Masaki, these jelly-like, egg-like things come out endlessly, as many as you want. That afternoon, he had tried to see how many would come out and filled a large coffee cup to the brim without stopping. Masaki hung his head and said, "I got too scared and stopped there, but I think even more would have come out if I had continued." I suddenly became curious. What did Masaki do with such a large amount of that grotesque mystery, which might be parasite eggs? "Did you throw it away?" When I asked, Masaki hung his head and shook it from side to side. At first, he thought about washing it down the sink or flushing it down the toilet. However, he realized that if this grotesque mystery were to multiply in the sewers, it would be terrifying. So he decided to boil some water in a small pot until it was about half full and pour the contents of the cup into it. He figured that if he kept boiling the mixture, the grotesque mystery would surely die off. He gently tipped the cup, careful not to spill or splash its contents, and as it flowed into the pot, a faint hissing sound resembling a scream emanated. At the same time, a smell that made one instinctively turn away permeated the air. "A smell? What kind?" I asked, and Masaki replied, "Do you know the smell of a crushed earthworm?" I understood that well, as I had used earthworms as fishing bait when I was in elementary school. When piercing the earthworm on the hook, its feces, internal fluids, and mucus would stick to my fingertips. I remembered sniffing my slimy fingers back then and making a fuss with my friends saying, "It stinks." It had a unique raw smell that I had never encountered before. When I nodded, Masaki said, "It's similar to that, but not the same. It's more fishy and nastier." Anyway, it was an unpleasant smell. Masaki kept the small pot on the stove, continuously boiling until the water had completely evaporated. He thought there would be some kind of trace left behind, but there was nothing at the bottom of the dried pot. Masaki and I then spent over an hour searching the internet together. We translated and searched in various languages, but we couldn't find a single case with similar symptoms. Masaki's initial words, "I don't think going to the student health center would cure it," felt more real. Eventually, Masaki said, "I was feeling down, but talking about it made me feel a little better," and he left. As he was leaving, he said, "I'll take these with me," and put all the glasses, paper plates, and everything else in a plastic bag and took them home. In the end, Masaki didn't go to the student health center. Later, Masaki soon broke up with his girlfriend. I knew the reason because Masaki had told me. Considering the timing of when that grotesque mystery would appear, Masaki said that if it could be transmitted from person to person, it would be when kissing, or when someone drank from the same drink he had been drinking. Eventually, Masaki started coming to university less and less. I was worried and often visited Masaki's student apartment. By that time, those egg-like things were appearing more frequently than before and would sometimes fly out of his mouth with a plop while he was talking. Masaki was hesitant to attend university for fear of infecting someone. On the other hand, perhaps as a reaction to that, he began to seek interaction with others more than ever before. When I went to his student apartment, he would welcome me as if he had been waiting, and persistently ask me about the recent activities of our friends over and over again. What Masaki showed a particularly abnormal interest in was what his friends were doing and where they were at the moment. No matter how many times I explained, after a while he would want to hear the same story again. I tried to persuade him to go to the student health center many times, but whenever the topic of the student health center came up, Masaki would suddenly become emotional, vehemently argue against it, and never say he would go. Eventually, Masaki dropped out of university without waiting for graduation. Anyway, since I can't commute, I can't even apply for the jobs I'm aiming for. If I can't get a job, there's no reason to stay in university until the end, Masaki explained. Soon after, Masaki started working on data entry and transcription jobs that could be completed entirely online, and he moved to a place far from the city center. I still keep in touch with Masaki, but recently he told me that he's been cooped up in his apartment almost all the time. After completing his designated amount of work for the day, he spends the entire day playing online games nonstop. When I asked him if he was feeling unwell, concerned that he wasn't sleeping much, he replied, "I'm bursting with energy." He clarified that not sleeping doesn't mean he's become mentally ill and can't sleep. Rather, he's so full of energy that he doesn't feel sleepy or tired, so he doesn't need to sleep. That's why he usually sleeps only for an hour or two. And even the act of sleeping itself is just a habit he maintains because it's what he used to do. If he doesn't make a conscious effort to sleep, it's not unusual for him to go on for days without sleeping at all. Masaki believes that the eggs in the parasite are the cause of this unusual situation. According to his theory, the parasite might be trying to make him move around actively to spread the infection. He explained, "The fact that the eggs keep coming out means that the parasite is still inside my body. It's a well-known phenomenon that the behavior patterns of a parasitized host are altered to facilitate the spread of the infection." Masaki thinks that his extraordinary energy and ability to continue his activities might be the parasite's way of making him move around actively, increasing opportunities to interact with others and spread the infection. Unfortunately for the parasite, it chose to inhabit Misaki in the modern era. Nowadays, one can interact with others as much as they want through the internet. The more Masaki interacts with others through online games, the more the parasite is stimulated, producing more and more eggs and urging him to interact with others even more. Regrettably for the parasite, all those eggs go to waste. Masaki believes that his increasing energy day by day and the ever-growing number of eggs being produced might be attributed to this very reason. Come to think of it, I remember that when Masaki started missing university, he would persistently ask me about his friends' recent activities over and over again whenever I visited his apartment. Still, what concerns me is, eggs keep coming out. Are there that many? I asked, and Masaki said, "By the time I finish brushing my teeth, quite a lot has accumulated in my mouth. And recently I've noticed that they're coming out of my eyes too." When he rubs his eyes, many of those things fall out, plop, plop, plop. And sometimes I accidentally step on them when they fall on the floor, Masaki said with a self-deprecating laugh and a sigh.